Hey guys, what's happening? Hope you're having an awesome day. Thanks for watching, coming back, all those kind of things. I appreciate it. And I did a recent video where it was a vlog. I went out to a park here in Austin, took a bunch of shots of waterfalls, and started talking about kind of what I do in the field. And I'm going to try to do more of those. It's fun for me. It's something a little bit different than these tutorials. It causes me to sort of think differently about creating content and all that. Anyway, it's fun to do. I'm going to do some more. But the point was, I was out shooting waterfalls, and shared some tips and tricks on how I capture them. And then I showed a dozen or so photos in the video that I'd already edited in Luminar, and just wanted to now follow up with a video, as I mentioned in that one, that I might do. And some of you said, hey, yeah, please, make a video about how you edited these. So this is a video about a particular photo, how I edited it in Luminar. I took it from, sort of kind of to kind of interesting, or at least to me. So let me show you the photo. This is the one. It was the header image on the video, and it started life like that. And so it was a 10-stop filter, probably 30 seconds at f11 or f13, something like that. I don't recall. But, that's roughly what it was. Maybe different. Anyway, the point was, I love the scene. I didn't like the colors and the mood. It was mid-morning, kind of overcast. I loved the little rocks that some people had stacked here in the foreground. I love the waterfalls, even though they're small. It's nice and wide, so it covers a lot of the frame in the background. And I really liked it, but I didn't like the colors, and I wanted to make it look like that, so that's what I did. And for me, shooting waterfalls, if they are like that, that's okay. I don't really mind. I have it in my mind when I'm shooting waterfalls that I want them to look more like this. It's almost like a fairy tale kind of look. I don't know what to call it. If you ever read the book The Name of the Wind, which by far is like the greatest book ever written, my favorite book for sure. But in The Name of the Wind, there's a character named Felurian, and she lives in this twilight glade. Anyway, you can go Google all that. But I was sort of going for the Felurian's twilight glade sort of look, fairy pool kind of thing. And I took it from that to that. So let me jump in and show you how I did it. Okay, so here we are. Now, this is a raw file, so I have the raw develop filter, which I cannot turn off, but you can see that I went from that original photo to that, just using the raw develop. So as you can see here, I cooled off the temperature a little bit, and that's part of the fairy tale look to me. It's much cooler than this base photo, which was very kind of warm, even though it was kind of a cloudy day. Just all the colors with the rock and the grass in the background and all that are just kind of warmer, kind of yellowy and that sort of thing. So I wanted to start getting rid of that because that's not the look I want. Added a lot of contrast, took down the highlights and even the shadows a little bit, and a tiny bump of clarity. Then I went to tone, and so this was basically reducing smart tone. So let me show you that before and after. It just took down a little bit more of the highlights there, which I think helps. And then I start getting into kind of the creative edits. So for me, it's kind of like I want to balance the light first, which is kind of what I did with tone and before that raw develop. And then I start getting into the color shifting, and color balance is the best tool for that. So you can see I went to a much more greener blue, which is a cooler sort of look, just with color balance. So there's before and there's after, and I don't think there's a better tool like anywhere. I mean, obviously I don't have every software editing program out there, but I've used a lot of them over the years, and I think color balance is like the greatest thing ever. So I basically took shadows, went a little bit cooler. Midtones also went a little bit cooler, so more to the cyan and more to the blue. And then highlights actually went a little bit warmer. I don't want the water to be completely blue, which is what will start to happen if you move the highlights to the blue, because the highlights are going to be the white parts, or the lighter parts, and that's the water, right? So I was able to go from that to that. I think already it looks much better. In fact, you could maybe stick a little vignette or something on this and be done. Now, I've got several layers here, some masking and all that kind of stuff, so I always keep playing and playing and playing. But I think, just from the base photo to now, it's massively different, and I think much improved. Certainly much more the look I'm going for. I next added brilliance and warmth, just to give it a little kick of brilliance or vividness, I guess. It just makes the colors pop a little bit more. Next was image radiance. So there, I brightened it a little bit and added a little bit of warmth. I brought back some of the greens. And so this is what you'll find I do a lot. And there's always a shorter, when you're done with a photo, you could probably go back and retrace your steps and say, okay, well, I did this, and then I kind of did that, which sort of negated the thing I did first. And so I tend to have, especially on edits like this where I'm getting really creative and all that, I tend to bounce around a little bit. And I'm mostly talking about color here. But I bounce around a little bit with color, and I do some things, and then I go back later that kind of undoes or, whatever, a little bit of what I'd previously done. So if I seem redundant or circuitous, if I'm taking a very crooked route to the end result, that's because I absolutely am taking a crooked route, because I go into this knowing kind of what I want in my head, but as I edit it, I start to get somewhere, I'm like, ooh, I like that. And then I get to a point where I stop, and then that's when I usually add a new layer and say, well, I want to do something else to see what other kind of things I can do and see how I can get to my final result. So it's a long way of saying lots of testing and playing around and jacking around, and that's why I end up adding layers and experimenting, because I don't really ever know, well, I do know when I get to my final thing, but I often make stops in between where I say, well, I kind of think that's final, but I'm not sure, and I might save it and set it aside and come back. So anyway, Image Radiance did those kind of things. And then HSL came in, and I basically took the saturation of the green and the blue down. It was getting a little too much green and blue, and I don't want to overdo it. And then I added adjustable gradient filter, which I adore. So I took the exposure down in the top and bumped up the contrast a little bit. And then for the bottom, I basically did similar things. I took the exposure down on the bottom, because if you look at it before, a little bit too bright. It's not looking like a twilight glade, as I said earlier. So I wanted to take the exposure down a little bit. And then also on bottom, I added a little bit of vibrance and made it a little bit cooler. So if you look at the bottom, kind of warmer, where some light's hitting those rocks and all that. And now it's a little bit cooler. So again, this is where I stopped in this layer and said, shit, that looks pretty cool. I like it. I think I'm getting there. But I wasn't done. So I came back, added an adjustment layer, and here I added Accent AI. You can kind of see the impact that had. Tone was next, right? So that kind of darkened it. I took Smart Tone down significantly, added contrast, took down highlights and whites. So again, just kind of playing with the light a little bit. HSL, I came down, or took the blue down a little bit and said a little too blue. Added some clarity. Clarity is basically adds like edge contrast, so it gives a little bit more depth. So I think it's a great slider. And then I came in with cross processing. And what I did here is I used Geneva, which made it kind of blue. And I went to 40, which is kind of strong. But then I did all of those things. And then what I did is I went in and added a Luminosity Mask. So let me just show you that. And I've got videos about Luminosity Mask. I'll put up here. I've also got videos about color balance, and I'll link to those as well. So I'm not going in this video into depth about those. But I basically created a Luminosity Mask, which applies to the brighter parts of the photo. And then I inverted it, so as you can see, it applies to the darker parts of the photo. So the initial Luminosity Mask would have looked like that, right? But I inverted it so that it would apply to the darker parts, because that's where I was wanting these edits to basically take place. Hope all that makes sense. So there I was now, and again, really blue, so this is where I came in with another adjustment layer. And color temperature actually did a little bit of warmth there and a little bit of tint increase. Once again, saturation of the blue and the green kind of coming down. And again, this is me bouncing around. It really comes down to me being indecisive. I'd love to tell you, I know exactly what I want to do, and here's the 3 steps, and do that, and you're perfect, and everybody's happy, and it's a 5-minute edit. But this one wasn't, and that's why I'm doing the video on it. I have some 5-minute edits. I do that a lot. And many times I know exactly what I want to do, and I know the steps to get there. But when I'm doing something creative and I know I want to look, but I don't know exactly how it's going to be, I do a lot of bouncing around like this. So hope I'm not driving you crazy. Accent AI, added that, and that brightened the photo quite a bit. And then I went in with negative structure. So you take the structure slider and you go to the left. And all I did is I painted this into the water. So let me just show you that. There it is. I painted it in at 100% opacity in that dark red, which is this line. And then I came through here with a lower opacity brush and a brush in the negative structure. So all that does is it removes detail, it smooths it out. And all I'm trying to do is create a smoother bit of water, because even though it was a long exposure, there's still like, especially right in here, it's a little bit too rough to my eye, and I want to smooth it out. And so that was all that. And so that's what this layer was about. Just, again, balancing colors, a little bit of light, and a little bit of negative structure. And then I just added an erased image layer, and this was basically taking out a couple of spots and that sort of thing. And that got me to my final version of the photo. So here it was before. bright. I like the photo. I love the composition. I mean, I'm a little biased because I took it, but I love those rocks. I was down kind of low to them. Let's see, what was I at? 53 millimeters. So I had on my 24 to 240, and so I wanted to get the stuff in the center, or the foreground, and then a little bit of dead space in the center with the water, but you can see the rocks clearly, which I think is cool. And then you got the waterfalls there, and then I came in and did all the edits that you've seen to turn it into that. So one more time, a before and after, very different look, kind of that ethereal fairy pool, Twilight Glade sort of thing. Just, whoops, didn't mean to zoom in there. Just a look that I like. I like to create that sort of fantasy look. Maybe too much time reading The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and The Name of the Wind, but some of my favorite books. Anyway, that's it for today, my friends. That's the video. That's how I made this photo. One more time. Before, not bad. I mean, I think it's shot decently well. I like how I shot it, but I just didn't like the colors or the overall look. And now much more moody and kind of mystical, maybe that's a good word. Anyway, that's it, my friends. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, like, share, all that stuff. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a great one. Thanks for watching. Adios.